Okay, before we start, I just want to say about Witch and this band is that there's very limited information out there about them. Like mainly for the sources for this video, I mainly just used their very short Wikipedia article and their article slash entry on the Metal Archives, and along with some stuff from their Bandcamp page and their page on TP Records. Other than that, like I just did the most with the limited information I could get available. So again, if anybody knows anything different or if I get anything wrong in this video, feel free to correct me in the comments. Stoner metal has had its fair share of heavy and fuzzy bands, but there's one band in particular from the 2000s that stood out with their songs and their guitar tones. That band was Witch. It was a side project of Mascis, most known for being Dinosaur Jr. While Witch only had 2 albums, both of them showcased stoner rock and metal in its finest form, bringing the perfect balance of heavy, fuzzy riffs, slow stoner jams, acoustic passages, and raw hardcore punk energy. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the 2 albums they released and their impact on the stoner rock slash metal scene, which came together in 2005 in Brattleboro, Vermont. Jay Mascis of Dinosaur Jr. and Dave Sweetapple of Erie and his own band, Sweetapple, had always wanted a, quote, real hard rock band. They added guitarist Asa Irons and guitarist-vocalist Kyle Thomas to the lineup. Both were from the avant folk group Feathers. Witch's members all had very different influences musically, and you'd think there wouldn't be any chemistry between the members from all different directions, but somehow it just worked out perfectly. I'll get to that later. Witch quickly released a self-titled demo EP in early 2006, which contained early versions of the songs Soul of Fire and Rip Van Winkle. Both these songs would later go onto their self-titled debut album, released on March 7th, 2006, through TP Records, a label known for housing many stoner rock slash stoner metal bands such as Sleep, High on Fire, Earthless, Nebula, Weird Owl, and of course, Witch. Now this album is honestly one of the best showcases of heavy, fuzzy, spaced out stoner rock slash stoner metal riffage. Literally every riff on this album sounds like a bong rip. Some psychedelic drugs were definitely consumed during the making of this. The production is definitely more lo-fi, and it perfectly suits the album, as I couldn't imagine a stoner rock album with a polished sound. I mean, maybe you could say Monster Magnet and Clutch do this, but I digress. The album opens with Seer. Right off the bat, we get the main riff with loads of feedback. The guitar screeches, and then the whole band comes in. Now, I just want to take another moment to acknowledge the band's insane chemistry and just how well the members work together. Both Kyle Thomas and Asa Irons work amazingly well as guitarists, and both have incredible tones for the album. Dave Sweetapple holds down the low end with his groove-laden bass lines that give the album an incredibly thick stoner sound. Jay Mascis' drumming brings a little bit of punk edge to the band, but also complements the insane grooves that the bass and guitars are creating. Topping it all off are Kyle Thomas's hazy, psychedelic vocals, with the lyrics not really being anything in particular or about anything, which is great, as that means the music is in focus and there are plenty of great instrumental jam sections. Soul of Fire comes next, followed by Black Saint, another song that opens with immense feedback, then transitions right into the first verse, accompanied by probably what is Dave Sweetapple's best bass line. Starting off side 2 is Changing, which, along with Seer, has got to be one of stoner rock's best riffs ever created, even if the song does kind of get a little lost halfway through and then transitions into a short vocal section, followed by another verse, and then a random noise experimental solo. Rip Van Winkle is more solo-driven, with plenty of them throughout the song. Hand of Glory follows suit with much more psychedelic haze and riffs, and lyrics, again, not really about anything. Isadora closes out the album, with most of the song being like an acoustic passage with softer singing from Kyle Thomas, some organ bits, and some occasional dissonant melodies and arpeggios. The rest of the band comes in about 3.5 minutes into the song, with a fuzzy riff to accompany, and Kyle Thomas just singing slash screaming Isadora over and over. There's a massive screech of feedback, and then the album ends. Again, the album is just an incredible showcase of stoner rock fuzzy riffage, and I would honestly put this in the top 10 stoner rock or top 10 stoner metal albums list. It's incredible. Witch released a self-titled live video in 2007, with the video local band Nitemare being included. It's a short documentary about the band, shows some footage, and includes live performances of Isadora and Seer, along with a photo gallery. I haven't seen it, or I don't own it. Hopefully one day I can get my hands on it. Witch released a split 7-inch with Earthless in 2008, and then released their second and currently most recent album, Paralyzed. on March 18th of that year. Now this album, compared to their debut, it's much more raw and energetic, with way more punk influences. From the first few seconds of the opening track I, it's obvious the band started taking more influences from Black Flag, as opposed to say like Black Sabbath or Sleep. I can even hear some Black Rebel Motorcycle influences in there. Gone is a somewhat more stoner-esque song, but it's back to the energetic stuff when it transitions perfectly into 1,000 miles per hour. Space God is definitely more psychedelic, with some weird vocal effects, a slow harmonized riff, and an incredibly thick bass line. Disappear is very Kaya sounding, and Sweet Sue is pretty reminiscent of Isadora from their first album with some occasional clean sections. Psychotic Rock is probably Witch's most feedback-laden song, and it definitely lives up to its title. It's a noise rock that definitely took some influence from the Melvins, as well as I can hear some Sonic Youth in there for sure. Mutated is another energetic hardcore punk song with an incredibly searing solo. The only complaint about that I have about this album is that sometimes the leads are turned way down, so it's hard to hear them over the rhythm guitar. But I'm pretty sure Mutated is Witch's shortest song, only really being around 2.5 minutes, maybe even less than that. The album closes out with Old Trapline, the only song on the album that has the kind of more stoner doom sound of their debut, being about 6 minutes long. So while the album isn't as strong as Witch's debut, man, it's incredibly solid on its own merits, and it's a great stoner metal album with a lot of punk influence. Not to mention, Mascis' drumming had a punk edge on their previous album, but here he's going all out. And he's definitely not playing like this ever since his time in Deep Wound, which was a hardcore punk band he was in before Dinosaur Jr., in case you don't know. Overall, while I do like their self-titled debut a little more, Paralyzed is definitely a worthy follow-up. Guitarist Asa Irons left the band in 2009, and they replaced him with Grant Cleese, which toured Earthless that same year, which released a live album in 2012 titled Die Fell Ritzhausen Cassette. I can't show the cover here, but feel free to look it up. It's on the Metal Archives. I'll link that in the description. It was released on cassette only. It was limited to 200 copies in Germany, released on the small independent noise rock label Who Can You Trust, which would tour and play shows sporadically throughout the 2010s, but other than the live album I just mentioned, they didn't release anything during that time. This is most likely because the members returned to their main bands and became busy with those, as Witch was a side project after all. Dinosaur Jr. reunited in 2005 and released a reunion album Beyond in 2007, followed by Farm in 2009. So Mascis became busy with that in the 2010s, effectively putting Witch on hold for a while. Post-pandemic, Witch got back to work, played some shows, and actually recorded a new album. At least they did according to their Instagram, because said album is not out or even announced yet. Things were looking good, and then the unthinkable happened. Less than a month ago at the time of this video, on August 8th of 2024, Witch bassist Dave Sweetapple passed away. The cause of death is currently not public or known, but either way it was a tremendous loss. Tributes poured in from all over, including Witch bandmates, the Roadburn Festival, and friends of the band on Instagram. Mascis put Witch on hold and Dinosaur Jr. on hold for a few days following Sweetapple's death. It's unknown at this time whether Witch will continue on without Dave, but all we do know is that the band recorded a follow-up album to Paralyzed when Dave was still alive, and it's most likely finished. So in case any of the members of Witch or anyone associated with the band just happens to be watching this, first off, you guys are awesome. But second off, now would be the best time to release the new Witch album in Dave Sweetapple's memory, even if the band breaks up and never releases anything again after this. So I'd like to thank anyone, of course, who watched this all the way through. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, if you want, of course. No pressure. I'd also like to thank the members of Witch and Dinosaur Jr. for making some great music and leaving that behind. It's incredible. I linked Witch's article on Wikipedia and on the Metal Archives in the description, as well as their Bandcamp page and their page on TP Records if you want to buy their stuff. If you buy their albums on vinyl, you'll get a patch and a few stickers. I got those when I ordered both those on vinyl as well. Their vinyls come in different colors and stuff. They get reissued all the time. So yeah, it's great stuff. You could buy each album separately or in a bundle. If you buy them both, it'll probably be cheaper. I've also linked their Facebook and Instagram pages if you want to give them a follow over there. Of course, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later.